Hi, and welcome to today's session of Design Lounge. My name is Jean-Pierre and I'll be your host for the next 45 minutes. We're very fortunate to have with us today Amber MacArthur. She is a journalist, writer, and also a professional in the social media marketing realm. She has worked on some great projects with Tony Robbins, the American Dental Association, Rogers, in helping them define their social media strategy and best approach to go to the market. Amber has just finished releasing a new book, Power Friendly, which is all about how to leverage social media to grow your business. And it'll be in the stores in June, so make sure that you look out for the copy and enjoy reading it. And so I'm just going to pass it on to Amber. I'm going to have some questions for her. Welcome, Amber.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm very excited to having you. We had an opportunity of meeting on the Pepsi business a while back, and I know that we were very impressed with the work that you're doing in the marketplace, and I thought that a lot of the knowledge that you have, you could share with our audience.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. I mean, social media is such a big thing right now, and it's so important, I think, for any company to really understand what's happening in this space. And that's kind of my role, is to try to help to educate people.
Good. Well, hopefully we'll be doing a lot of educating today. So Amber, I introduced you, and obviously you've got a lot of experience in social media. Could you share with the audience your background?
Yeah, no problem. I graduated with a postgraduate degree in journalism in 1999. And at the time, I thought I was going to become a reporter, maybe a news reporter. And I moved out to San Francisco because I had heard about the dot-com boom happening out there. And there were all these jobs and so much excitement. And so I decided to travel out to San Francisco thinking maybe I'd get a job as a journalist. But instead, I got really sucked into the web world and worked at a company called Razorfish, which in the early days of digital marketing was definitely a leader in that space.
Firm, yes.
Yeah, for sure. So I worked there for a while. And my job eventually kind of evolved at a couple of startups where I was an online community manager. And at the time, that meant really just managing an electronic newsletter, managing forums, trying to get forums up and running. And so it was kind of the early days, very early days of social media, although we didn't really realize how popular this would become. So I was in the States for about 3 or 4 years, came back to Canada and worked for Microsoft and worked on a project for them, a women's portal to help them learn about technology, then hosted some shows at Tech TV, and at the same time always did a lot of consulting in the new media space. And most recently I've worked as a tech reporter for the past few years, but at the same time I've run my own agency as well, doing social media consulting. As you mentioned, just wrote a book. And so, it's all kind of come together. I didn't really plan it this way, but I was kind of in the right place at the right time to really embrace social media and understand how it works and explain it to other people.
And so this book, would you like to share with the audience Power Friending? Well, what was the why the title, and what's inside the book?
Well, the title, for one thing, it really is about friending people online. So I think in the marketing space on the web, you really have to think about creating relationships, in that sense becoming friends. We use the term friend on Facebook and other social networks. And so it's a popular way to really change the way that you think about making relationships. You really are trying to be these people's friends and not necessarily be the marketer in that sense. You want to try to get close to people, connect with people in a very meaningful way. So that's where the title comes from, because also in the social media space, you have to be very aggressive. You have to be very on top of any of your initiatives. You can't just put a message up on Twitter and then go away for a week. So the idea behind the power friending is that you have to be engaged all of the time, connect all of the time, and really push forward in a very meaningful way. As for what's inside the book, it's kind of a how-to book for how to use social media tools and what tools might be helpful to your organization. And there are some great examples, some case studies of companies who have done it right and companies who have done it wrong. So this will help people learn along the way. And so I talk a little bit in there as well about the history of social media. And then towards the end, the book talks about some of the trends that you should watch out for. Things like location-based technology and the whole mobile world that's exploding right now that maybe you don't want to try right away in terms of your social media initiatives, but you should be aware of them because it's something that will be coming down the road and you may want to adopt when it becomes more popular.
Great. Do you think that brands can actually befriend somebody, turn consumers into friends?
I do. I mean, I think it's more difficult than the old way of marketing where brands couldn't necessarily become friends with people. But I think because social media allows you to create this more intimate environment with people, let's say, for instance, if you are connecting as a brand with someone on Facebook, you can see pictures of their family, their kids. And so all of a sudden those relationships can happen. I don't think it's the same definition of a friend that, we might know historically where it's someone you invite over for dinner. But I think, the whole idea behind social media, it has really changed our definition of a friend. friend, and now we have these sort of loose connections with people online, but the relationships still have to be meaningful.
You know, I know that social media has been around for quite a while, a couple of years, 3 or 4 years, and different companies have different opinions and thoughts and definitions of social media. So could you share with our audience what social media means for you?
Yeah, you know, social media is one of these terms that is kind of difficult to define because there isn't one precise definition. For me, I really think of social media as being a set of tools that you can easily use on the web to engage with your audience. So you want to use these tools to build community, to build customer loyalty, and really to extend your brand. So I think that's kind of a broad definition of social media.
Obviously, there's a variety of social media tools available to marketers. Could you share with us your thoughts on which are the best social media tools available and which ones work the best for marketers and why?
Yeah, no problem. I really put social media tools into 5 distinct categories. So one of those categories is social networking tools. So that would be like Facebook or LinkedIn. Also blogging, as well as video, and also mobile. Those are all really important tools that you might want to use to engage in any type of social media strategy. Now, within these different silos, I mentioned about 4 of them. There are a few others. You can really hone in on some of the more popular tools right now. For instance, in the blogging world, there's a very great tool out there called Squarespace that allows you to easily create a blog and brand that blog and do it without a lot of knowledge about how to actually design or develop something from scratch. So for $8 a month, you can easily get a fantastic blog online. On the social networking front, I mentioned Facebook. There's another handy tool out there right now, which is called Ning, which allows you to create a custom social network. So that means you can go and get all of the tools that you might find on Facebook or another social networking site, but you can really brand that entire portal as your own. So if you don't like Facebook, you find it too personal, then this is an opportunity to really have something outside of the Facebook experience and to still have the same set of tools. On the mobile front, there are many great tools right now, and one of the most popular, as you mentioned, is Twitter. I love Twitter because it allows you to easily, in 140 characters or less, reach out to an audience of people. You know, the one thing about Twitter is you have to kind of use it for 2 or 3 months till you really realize that how valuable it can be. I think the most important thing for using Twitter is to make sure that you measure your traffic, measure what you're doing, and find out what's successful for you on Twitter. For example, if you're running a marketing campaign and you're promoting it on Twitter, you want to make sure that you measure the links that you're sending out, how many people have visited, where those people are visiting from. And I think this is the very interesting thing about social media is that all of this stuff that you're doing, all these tools that you're using can really be measured in a very accurate way. We've never really had that before in the media or marketing world.
So we talked a lot about metrics. I think it's important for the audience to understand that social media is measurable, and what kind of metrics can we expect in the use of social media?
I really do think this is the most exciting part of social media, because if you think in the past where you maybe a brand running a television commercial on TV or putting something in a magazine, it's very difficult to determine how many people are actually interacting with your brand in that way. What's interesting about social media, and I'll mention one tool which I love, which is a Canadian company called Hootsuite. This tool allows you to Hootsuite. I know it's a funny name.
How do you spell that?
Hootsuite. And it allows you to go in, and when you're launching any type of campaign on Twitter, Facebook, or a number of social media websites, and you have a link attached to the campaign that you are promoting, you can go in, you can submit that link into Hootsuite, and you can manage on what's called a dashboard inside Hootsuite to be able to promote on these multiple social networks. So I'll give you an example of this. One of the reasons people don't want to engage in social media often is because they don't have time. Well, using a tool like Hootsuite, you can send your messages out to multiple social networks at the same time with a link, and then you can measure how many people have clicked on that link. And that's where it gets kind of exciting, because you can find the time of the day someone's clicked, you can find out where they've clicked from, what country they're from, and you can find out what campaigns that you've launched in social media have become successful based on the traffic or the conversation that has generated. So Hootsuite is just one example of a number of sites right now on the social media front that are there to help you make sense of social media, help you make it easier so you're not spending too much time engaging on these sites, and also helps you measure it so you can determine determine if you've been a success or not.
Is there any other metric tools that marketers should look at? A number of clicks, number of views. I know that for our website, we use Google Analytics, and Google Analytics provides us a clear read on where they're coming from and what section of the website they're looking at and how many clicks and how many page views a week?
Yeah, Google Analytics is amazing, and I think down the road there's going to be some integration with Hootsuite, which will be interesting. Google Analytics is one of my favorite tools because you're right, you can really hone in on the information as far as drilling down on where people are clicking on your website, finding out if they're coming to the home page and then not going anywhere else. Well, maybe you need to beef up content on those secondary pages. So I think Google Analytics is another great example. Another simple tool is called Bitly, bit.ly, and it's kind of like Hootsuite without all the bells and whistles. So it's a very simple way if you want to just measure a link quickly, sign up for an account. It doesn't have the dashboard, the extensive dashboard that Hootsuite does. It's a very simple interface. So it's great for someone just beginning to understand the type of information that they can get out of marketing a link online.
And so when you look at business metrics, are there benchmarks that marketers need to look at and say, because really this is new territory. This is really social media marketing. Use of social media is only about 2 years old, and so very often we get asked. Just recently, last week, one of our large clients asked us, "Well, what are the metrics and benchmarks that we could identify with that would tell us that we're doing a good job?" Is there any kind of guidance you can give our audience on those kind of benchmarks?
Well, I think it's very different for different companies or different brands because it really depends on what you're trying to do. And I'll give you an example. If you're a really small company who maybe does something very niche oriented, it might be important to you that you have only 100 followers on Twitter because those people are very interested in the very niche oriented product that you're producing. Now, if you're a bigger company, you mentioned Pepsi, you're not going to want just 100 people on Twitter. You're going to want, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people. So I think the metrics really change based on the company and based on the goals. And I think that's one thing social media does well. If you do have a company that is very niche oriented, you can really target those people and find those people online and bring them together and hopefully create a community and a home base for those people as well. So like you said, we're very early on in the days of social media, and I think for most people, I think the metrics are something that you have to come up with your own goals. There's nothing you can really look to. You have to decide that, okay, these are our goals by the end of the year, and track everything that you do and try to achieve those goals. I'm working with a client right now that's very determined to get 50,000 friends on Facebook because we've worked together to decide that, hey, that's a manageable number of friends. We should be able to get that many people over the course of the year. And along the way, we're doing contests to try to promote people and get them engaged and become members of their fan site. So I think it's very specific to the company.
When you look at social media campaigns, because there are now social media campaigns, obviously we worked, PepsiCo has been very successful in their social media strategy, both for naming products and creating commercials that are running on the Super Bowl. Are there other examples of organizations that have developed social media programs that could be examples, lightning rod of what can be accomplished through the media?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the companies I think which has done the best job, I think, around the world on the social media front is a company called Zappos. They're an online shoe retailer based in the U.S., and they've really embraced social media in a way that has been very effective for them. So, for example, at their company, they encourage everybody within the company to become members of Twitter and be there to give customer support to any of the people who are inquiring about their shoes on Twitter. So they have almost 500 people in their company who are on Twitter on a regular basis. All of these Twitter handles or usernames are posted on the Zappos official website. And so the company has said, instead of saying, hey, we think you're wasting time on all of these social media tools, we're asking you to use them. We can't, with one or two people as community managers, get out to the huge audience that we have online. So they really, truly have an army of people that they've built up using these tools. And I think what they've done right is they've grown from the inside out. They've said that, hey, if social media isn't important with inside the company, we can never really make a difference outside the company. And so what's happened is from their CEO down, who's really embraced using social media in many different ways on many different platforms, he said it's okay to use these tools. I want to be a role model for all of you, and they've had huge successes. So Zappos is probably one of the best companies to look to.
So I think one of the important points you're making is social media could be part of a cultural shift in an organization where it's used to align and support kind of the culture of the company with its employees.
I think that's really important. I cannot tell you how many times I speak to different audiences, and all of a sudden at the end of my keynote, someone will say, hey, we love your ideas, but we're not even allowed to access YouTube inside our organization. It's blocked. So what are we supposed to do? And I do think it's a cultural shift. I mean, we know that people out there are using social media. We know that it's growing like crazy. There are 400 million people on Facebook right now. There are 600 tweets on Twitter every single second. So we know how this is exploding. And so I think culturally inside most organizations, they have to learn to really change and embrace these tools and really beef up their internal communications by using these tools, and hopefully that spreads outside.
It's interesting. I'm part of a social media group called Marketing Profs. And Marketing Profs is probably one of the best places, websites you can find the most topical answers, the most topical answers to what's leading the marketplace. And they have just released a huge study on social media, who's using it within organizations, what's the policies, how it's used the most often. It's definitely a study worth visiting at marketingprof.com. It's about $350 to buy the study if you're a member, but the information within that is invaluable for marketers trying to build case studies on what works and why it works and who's using it. Let's just talk a little bit about the different, we talked about a little bit the different social media tools. What's emerging, what I'm seeing a lot is bookmarking or benchmark, or bookmark, I think it's called bookmarking, am I correct?
Yeah, I mean, bookmarking like the sites like Delicious, for example. Yeah, that's just one of them. I mean, Delicious has been around for a while, and I think is becoming more and more popular. So it's a place where you can easily save all of your favorite links that you stumble across online. You can share them with other people. People can get a feed of all your links. And so it's a way to be able to share content to connect people who have similar interests. So I think bookmarking, again, is just another type of tool they can use on the social media front. I mean, there are so many of these tools. And, even though I talk about them sometimes in silos, the reality is there's overlap among a lot of them, because bookmarking, for example, we take a site like Delicious. Well, that could also be considered a social network, because there are people in there who are connecting and friending people, and so it could be it's not the same as Facebook, but it does serve the same purpose as far as building community.
So obviously, marketers are faced with the dilemma. Do we get involved in social media? Do we wait? Why would an organization leverage social media? Why should they do it now versus next year or the year after?
Well, I think for most organizations, they will find that the audiences that they're trying to reach are online. They're already participating online, whether these organizations like it or not. So you can decide to sit back and let these conversations continue, or you can be a player in the game. It's just a matter of time before you're going to engage in social media for most organizations that are going to succeed. So I think, whether you wait, that's your decision, but you'll end up being a little bit behind the times. So I think in terms of leveraging social media, in the long run, it can also be a very cost-effective way to reach a large group of people. Now, I'm not going to tell you that it only takes a few hours a week, because I think to do it right, you really need to invest those hours, and you need to have someone who's responsible for a lot of your communications in the social media space. But I think in the long run, like I said, it can be cost effective, and you can, again, create more meaningful relationships with people because you have that one-on-one contact. It's not necessarily a television commercial anymore where people are very passive and not interacting with it. You can do social media campaigns on the web where people can actually interact with your content. You can find your fans, they can produce content for you, and so you have a very different type of experience, and one I would say that is superior than the traditional way of marketing.
So when you look at social media and you look at who is doing social media and who's managing the social media agenda, is it on the client side? Are clients saying, we really need to get involved in social media? Or is it the agencies, advertising agencies, where they're seeing their revenue, their media dollar revenue eroding, saying, we really need to get involved in this because this is going to be the way that we're going to reach out to our clients' customers in the future? Like, who is leading this agenda, the client or the agencies?
I think the people are. I sound like a bit of a digital hippie here, but I really think the people are. And I think what's happening is people are seeing the impact that, maybe a young person is making with a YouTube video and they're having 5 million views, and they're seeing someone who's created an amazing campaign using some of the other sites that we've talked about today. And so clients, I think what they're saying is hey, we know a little bit about social media. We know it can be effective. How do we take part in that game? And, quite frankly, a lot of agencies are kind of scrambling to keep up as well, because they have to change the way that they are really catering to the clients, and they have to learn a whole new set of tools. Like you said, social media hasn't been around for a very long time. So to be an expert in this space, I mean, there are not necessarily that many of them, and they don't have a lot of experience either. So I think it's really something where the people are leading, the clients are then coming to a lot of agencies, and the agencies are responding and trying to learn as much as they can, again, from the people. So it's like this circular thing that's going around and around.
So it's very interesting. So what you're really saying is the power is shifting from conventional advertisers and brand marketers to consumers.
It really is. Like, for example, right now, when I want to go out and buy something, or if I'm looking for a hotel to stay in and a restaurant to eat at, I don't necessarily wait till a commercial comes on TV or the radio, or I find something on Google. I go to my own trusted networks online, and I get a response from them in terms of what I should be buying, what I should be doing, how I should be spending my money. And I think we're going to see that more and more, is that if I want to know, for example, hey, I'm interested in buying a new car, I may go onto Twitter and say, what kind of car should I buy? This is how much money I have. These things are important to me. And then all of a sudden I have a dozen responses from my own trusted community of what I should buy. Now it's great if someone like Ford participates in that conversation, or another car maker, and sees that conversation. And that's why it's very important for most organizations to be part of social media and start having a presence on many of these sites right now.
So most companies have brand marketers and advertising managers and CMOs, and when you look at that hierarchy within a corporation, Amber, do you feel that there should be a social media manager or director?
Yeah, I mean, I think for most companies, if you have someone who's in charge of all of your social media initiatives online, it can be very helpful. Now, you have a couple of choices here. One is to really promote someone from within to engage online and be that community manager online. It might be someone at your company who's familiar with social media, already using it, and who really embraces it and who is passionate about it. The other option you have is to hire someone from outside of your organization who understands social media, who can come in and make a difference that way. I would say whoever it is, the most important thing is that they truly are passionate or are interested in engaging online and not afraid to engage online. I mean, I've definitely worked with people before who are scared to go on and post something, and they're very timid in the social media space. Well, then you're not going to be the best community manager, because you need to be present there. You need to be active on a regular basis. So if you have someone who's your marketing manager who's antisocial, probably not the best person to be the social media manager. If you have someone who is very social and who's already using these tools, maybe seek that person out, and they essentially become kind of a brand ambassador online.
When you think of social media and you look back 2 years ago, Twitter didn't exist. Facebook was just starting to grab attention and getting a lot of eyeballs connected to the content. So if you say if that much has changed, millions of new viewers worldwide, I think the web blogs have grown by 3 million%. What is the future of social media? What should you expect coming up next? What should we be looking for next?
I am very excited about what's happening in the mobile world right now, and I think most people should pay attention to what's happening there. They don't necessarily need to embrace these tools right now, but they should be aware of them. So I think in the mobile world we have a couple of things, like location-based services, which I touched on briefly. So the idea there is that I would use a service like Foursquare or GoWalla and check in at different locations. So let's say that I'm a huge coffee fan and I go to Starbucks on a regular basis. Every time I go there, I check in on my phone, and then everybody in my network knows I checked in there. And then for Starbucks, it's an opportunity for them to send me regular coupons. They know my patterns. They know when I'm stopping there, and throughout the week, what times I'm going to be there. And so I think that location-based services are a big one. And really anything on the mobile front. I think that whole world is exploding. We've seen it with apps, and that's happening with iPhone apps. Not so much with BlackBerry apps, but we're seeing Android apps. For instance, that there's a lot of growth in that space as well. So customized applications on mobile devices that allow people to get information quickly, or allow them to do something very easily. And so I think companies should really pay attention to the mobile front, because I do believe when there's going to be a day not that far in the future where we're no longer tethered to a desktop computer. We really are on the go all of the time. And so marketers need to learn how to market on the go.
Great. When I look at mobile applications and in that venue, I can see the benefit for a marketer, and I can definitely see the benefit if you're a retailer, because you can manage your peaks and valleys from a staffing standpoint, because you really have a clear understanding of your patterns. But really, what's the benefit for sharing where you are amongst your friends? I mean, what what value does that bring to the individual, to the people?
Well, I think to the people, I think people are looking more and more for ways to connect. And they love this idea that I can notify my network about wherever I am at any time. It's not for everybody. I don't think everybody's going to embrace this technology and say, I want people to know where I am all the time. But we're seeing it in droves, in the sense there are definitely communities already that love the idea of being able to connect wherever they are. And so I think for individuals, what's exciting about this is it gives them new opportunities to meet up with their friends, to new opportunities to meet new people, and just opportunities to kind of broadcast to the world. Not that everybody's looking for that kind of 15 minutes of fame, but it's an opportunity, I think, to get out there and to really kind of make a difference and change the way that you effectively communicate with other people and have some type of presence online. And I think that whole world is really exploding.
So, social media, it's bewildering for some. Obviously, some people are sitting on the edge waiting to jump in. If you were to give 10 tips for our audience on how to better leverage social media and how to get involved, what would you suggest?
I would say the first thing to do is go to this really handy site out there called namecheck.com. That's NAMECHK.com. And that will allow you to register your brand's name across multiple social media websites. So instantly, within just a few seconds, it will tell you if your brand has been registered on different sites, and you'll have the opportunity to go and register your name on those sites. So you have really a consistent presence, even if you're not participating on those multiple sites just yet. So be part of that space, even if you're not playing there yet. The next thing I would recommend is that you think of some of the big sites out there where your community that you're trying to address, where they're playing right now, so where they're participating. And maybe it's 2 or 3 different networks where they are active, or maybe it's Facebook, Twitter, Ning, whatever it might be, and decide that for your social media efforts, you're really going to embrace these different networks and be part of them and do something on them. So try to attack it kind of in small steps. So once you decide that, okay, it's important for us to be here, here, and here, then start your social media efforts and commit to a timeline and a plan as well. I think a lot of people think with social media, well, we don't really need to have a plan. But any marketing effort, as you know, needs to have a plan in place. You need to have goals, you need to have objectives. The same thing with social media. So actually develop your own plan, have a few important tools in mind, and set out really a calendar of events in terms of how often you're going to participate in these sites, some of the different campaigns that you plan to launch, how you're going to measure all of this, and how you're going to make sure that every month your community is effectively growing. And I think if you get to that point and you do all of those steps over the course of a couple months and really start engaging, you will see success in this space. But it does require a big time commitment, and also there's a big learning curve as well.
One parting question. Obviously, our audience are either owners of companies or managers of marketing departments or brand marketers. Not everyone's doing social media. What recommended tips would you have for them to sell the idea to their senior management, to the leadership of their company, about the importance and merits of social media?
Well, I think one of the best things you can do to really educate yourself about social media is just read some of the social media blogs out there. One of my favorites is called Mashable.com. It's really the social media guide on the web. So what's great about Mashable is they have a lot of case studies that they will post. And this is across multiple industries. Let's say, for example, that you're a dentist and you run a small little business. Well, there's probably a case study about a dentist somewhere who's already embraced social media. If you're a big car company, they'll have case studies there as well, and they'll talk about the different tools and how companies are using these tools. So check out Mashable, educate yourself about what's happening there, and really use that as part of your argument in terms of saying, hey, we need to engage in this space. Another thing I would do is simply sign up for a free service called Google Alerts. Now, Google Alerts allows you to go in and to put in any key search word that anytime this term comes up online, you'll be emailed if anybody's talking about your company or your brand. What's neat about this is you can go in and you can say to your executives or whoever you're talking to that, hey, look what I found online. Now, we're not talking to these people who are already talking about our brand. This is a missed opportunity to connect. So if you go in armed with case studies about how others are doing it and then talk about how we're missing an opportunity right now because there's no one for these people to talk to or reach out to, I think you can have a pretty good case for social media and hopefully get started.
It was an interesting story in the news recently. Domino's Pizza, 2 of their employees were doing some pretty unsavory things to the food as part of I guess a YouTube video that they were posting. And obviously that created a huge consumer backlash. And the comment was that the CEO took too long to respond. Obviously they created a video and put it on Facebook and YouTube and a variety of other social media tools. but because they weren't really social media savvy, they wasted a long time and lost a lot of credibility from their customers about the quality of their food and the safety of their food. So obviously, you can either drive the agenda for social media, or consumers will drive it for you. And I believe that it's important to have a contingency plan and understanding what people are saying about your brand way before it becomes an issue. Amber, I'm looking at the cover. There's a photograph of you with some different individuals. Can you explain how this came to be, this cover design?
Well, it's really interesting. I was working with my publisher, and we were talking about the cover, and they said, well, we want you on the cover with a bunch of people behind you. And they thought, okay, we're going to use stock photography. And I said, well, in the book, I talk a lot about authenticity, how it's important to be real and not be fake around your community. So I said, why don't we do this? Why don't I go on Twitter and see if anyone wants to come join me for the cover shoot, and we'll see who shows up, and they can be part of the cover of the book. So instead of it being me by myself helping to market the book, I can have this small little army of people who are really engaged and who want to be part of the book as well. So I went on Twitter. I got about 15 to 20 people who showed up at the photo shoot, and we did the photo shoot. And now many of them, and they're all on Twitter, as I mentioned, they're very excited about the book, and they're also helping me to promote the book. So I think it's important because, again, I talk about authenticity, but also about really engaging an audience of people internally. And so what we've done here is engaged a group of people who can help with the promotions throughout the run of the book itself.
Great. And this book is going to be launched in June?
Yeah, it's available June 10th, but it's available now for pre-order.
Pre-order on what? Amazon.com?
Yeah, it's at Amazon, many of the different websites, so it's pretty much most of the big book retailers online. But you can go to powerfriending.com, and you can get more information, or just my website, ambermac.com/book, and you can get links to buy the book there.
Well, thank you very much, Amber, for sharing some great insights. Obviously, we have a white paper on social media strategies. In addition to, you can download the PowerPoint presentation with a lot of other pertinent information. We're now going to open up the lines, and you'll see on the screen a toll-free number and a dial-in number. Please, by all means, dial a number. Both Amber and myself are available to answer your questions. That's why we've left the presentation for 35 minutes, so that we can provide ample time for all of us to share our thoughts and answer specific questions that you may have about your social media strategies and how you can maximize them. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your time during lunch with Amber and myself, and look forward to your questions. Thank you very much.